Okay. Another thing that you will have to be able to do with these quadratics is identify the domain and range. For domain, that is talking about your x values. So we're looking at what x values are possible for our parabolas. With your parabolas, they are going to continue on forever in going left and right. So they're never going to have a stopping point for those x values. That means when you write your answer, you're just going to put x is all real numbers. And that's the same thing for our absolute value graphs. They continued on forever going left and right. So your domain, your x values are going to be all real numbers. Range, on the other hand, this one was a bit of a struggle with our absolute value graphs. Remember, range is talking about your y values. So when you think range, you should think y. You are going to compare y to the y value of the vertex. So if we look at the vertex on this graph, it is at 1, -4. So when you are writing your range, you are going to use y and the y value of that vertex, -4. Then you need to decide, is y going to be greater than or less than that value? But it's always going to be equal to. And in this one, if we look at our graph, it is going up. So all of these y values end up being greater than -4. And that's how you are going to tell which inequality sign to finish your range with. Okay, so then if we look at our second example, again, domain is all of our x values, and that is going to continue on forever going left and right. So x is all real numbers. So we could plug in any value into our equation, and we will get an output when we are having a quadratic. Range, on the other hand, we have our y value. So you need to figure out what the y of your vertex is. This one is down 1. So it's first over 3 and then down 1. So the y value here is -1. That is what we need to compare y to. Then looking at our graph, y is going down. So these values end up getting smaller. So all of these y values would be less than or equal to -1. And that would be our domain and our range. That brings us to the last part of the 3.1 notes. For this one, we're going to write the quadratic function with the given information. They want us to write it in vertex form. So vertex form is when you have your a value multiplied by x minus h in parentheses squared plus your k value. Right away, they do tell us our vertex. And remember, your vertex is your h and your k value. H will be the opposite sign when we plug it in. So if we plug those two values in, we don't know what a is yet, so I'm going to put a box here. And we would have x minus 1 in parentheses squared, and then minus 4, because our k value was -4. In order to finish our equation, we need to know what this a value is. That's what we're solving for. That is where the second point that our graph passes through is going to help us. It's going to help us figure out what a is. This point gives us an x and a y coordinate that the graph is going to go through. So to solve for a, we are going to rewrite this equation again, but instead of x and y, we're going to put the 14 and the 4. And we need to figure out what a equals. So x was 4, and we plugged in the y. Once you plug that in, you have one variable you need to solve for, a. So if we follow PEMDAS, we need to do the inside of the parentheses first. 4 minus 1 is going to be 3. And then we are able to square it. So 3 squared would be 9, so I'm going to write it as 9a. Now we just use our inverse operations, add 4 to both sides. And that gives us 18 equals 9a. Then when we divide by 9, we get our a value of positive 2. Once you have that a value, you are going to plug it into your equation. When you write your final equation, it should have the variables x and y in it. So x and y are part of the final answer. So you would have y equals 2 times, in parentheses, x minus 1, parentheses squared, minus 4. Another big thing that people tend to forget is the squared. Make sure you don't forget the squared. If you don't have a squared value in your equation, it's not going to be a parabola once you graph it. All right, that's the end of 3.1. If you have any questions, make sure you let me know.